Over a year ago, when my husband was interviewing, he as a researcher at UTC, it was on a Thursday that I came up here, and I think Chadev was just finishing. And I mean, I was blown away. It was a crowd, you know, probably this size, maybe a little bit bigger. And I asked Ken Hayes, who I was meeting with, about it, and he explained it to me. And I thought, wow, that's definitely something that Birmingham needs. So as someone who was, you know, in that community for almost 15 years, there's not a group like this. There are several kind of, I'd say meetup groups, but they're all fractured and people get burned out. So it's really great to see a, you know, kind of tech developer focused organization that's really run by the community members that has been around for 5 years and is still going strong. So that's a little bit about my background. I am now the Director of Programs at CoLab, and today we're going to kick the panel off with an introduction of each of our panelists. Many of you, or most of you, might know them, but to also talk about, after they introduce themselves and what they do, their relationship with Chadev and how they're involved in it. So you want to start, Anna?
Hello. All right. Yeah. You guys may know me. I'm Anna Sherman. I'm a developer at Carbon 5, and through Carbon 5, I got way more involved in the community and started helping out with the Hack Nights, took over the Codex X, which is the women's tech meetup in town, and then started hanging out with the Cha Tech people, helping them run Cha Tech Women, and I'm now on the board with them as the secretary. About 2.5 years ago, Brett, who was our fearless leader at Chadev for so long, approached me and said he would really like it if I would join the organizer team and help out. So I did. I helped with AV and set up the meals each week, and then got involved in helping with our online community and keeping that a safe and inviting and inclusive place. And yeah, I think that's how I got involved here.
I'm Andrew Rogers. I've been around as long as the Chadev lunch has been happening outside of its initial very, very kernel of beginning, which was a lamppost group company lunch. I've certainly seen the community evolve a lot. You know, we would have about 12 folks show up a week, and it's grown now. You know, we're not quite at the peak we have been in the past. I think we're going to dive into that a little bit today. I'm excited to talk about what we're doing in 2019 to, you know, keep this room filled and keep you all interested. But I'm excited to continue to be a part and also to see other folks in the community step up and continue the Chadev legacy.
I'm Derrick Lucas. I work at a company called Archiver in Nashville. I work remotely, and so when we moved here about a year or two ago, didn't know that many people, and I just sort of started hanging around here and joined the online community. And I think I'm up here because I post opinions on Slack often, and so yeah, I'm here now. I don't know.
I'm John Cotton, and I'm a freelance developer, and I stumbled into a Chadev about 4 years ago. Didn't know what Jekyll was, learned about it. And then about a year ago, Brett asked me to kind of come in and help organize the lunch events and do some of the live streaming and work with some of the speakers. And so I kind of serve in that capacity now.
Great. So Andrew, you talked a little bit about how Chadev got started, a little bit about the history. I got it good. Can you elaborate, sort of, you know, kind of go through that up until the present?
We started this with 3 mics. I don't know how we got down to 1. And it does, for the rest of my panelists' benefit, it auto ducks. So like if you stop talking, it kind of goes quiet. So you just have to keep going. Sorry. So yeah, so a little bit of the start. I would say, you know, when I first got involved here, the tech scene, the startup scene, and they were kind of intertwined at that time. You know, there were still like TVA, Unum, Blue Cross all had their large internal development teams that, you know, unfortunately didn't get outside much. And then you had some of the really young startups that were, and there weren't very many of them at the time. And there certainly weren't the number of software agencies we have today, which is really great. But with those, you know, small companies, they had decided internally, their developer organizations had decided, hey, we should be sharing some of the stuff we're learning. You know, each of these startups has a very different product, but we're all working in some of the similar technology. So they had started this, you know, very small lunch group, and I got involved. They kind of decided, hey, this is really valuable. We should open this up to the external community. They kept doing that for about a year, where Lamppost Group continued to fund lunch every week for every developer in Chattanooga who had an interest in being there, which is really an you know, a laudable thing for them to have done. But at some point they were like, hey, why are we doing this for everyone else? Like, it was great when it was our 12 developers. Now you've got 40, 50 people a week. You've outgrown the space. You're not even in our space anymore. Like, this is, you know, we need to figure this out. So at that time, Chris Keithley, who probably many of y'all know as well, was very involved. And there was all those things that happen when an organization like that has to kind of jump out of a nest. And it was a little rough for a while, but you know, I was there and I kept saying, you know, like, look, this is too valuable for our community to let it just die because, you know, the core, like the initial kernel is going away. Like, we, you know, there's value being delivered to employers in our area from, you know, helping share best practices with their employees. There's value being delivered to the developers and helping them, you know, fight for fair wages and, you know, and compensation based on their ability to, you know, do the soft skills things that we feel like Chadev helps develop in our community. You know, giving, you know, the key thing for me initially with this was there's, you know, approximately 48 opportunities a year for someone in Chattanooga to get up, tell a story, share something something about technology that helps all of us, but also giving them a practice, you know, a place to practice and get and refine the craft of presenting, you know, their own personal story. And, you know, from a kind of a higher level, and this is on the slide here, I have a small company called Ace IoT Solutions. We build some IoT cloud platform stuff for the distributed energy markets. But you know, I also work with the Enterprise Center who hosts us here. And the Enterprise Center's kind of purview is around technology, economic development in Chattanooga, and, you know, supporting and driving innovation ecosystem. And from a high level perspective, like, the more of you all who practice your craft, are very, you know, talented technically, can also get up and present, and then you're submitting to conferences. Like, obviously your employers want you to do that. They want you talking at conferences to recruit additional tech talent to Chattanooga, and it makes Chattanooga look good. So this is like a very valuable, even at a high level, from a, you know, wider community perspective. So anyway, back to like the history thing. We went out, raised some money, found, you know, we're able to tell our story effectively to several of the large companies, several of the startups. Carbon 5 was a very significant initial supporter. Managed to kind of get enough funding to push it through for approximately, you know, 2.5, 3 years. We did a little bit worse of a job of raising the next round of funding, and then we really kind of in 2018, you know, this problem that happens that I think Jennifer mentioned about as far as burnout, we've been very sensitive to that. Maybe one of the reasons why I've like, I'm still around because I've been sort of lazy about involvement. Like, I've tried to help someone else be the front and center leader, but that's enabled me to kind of have the inertia and endurance to still be here and kind of help try to convene this group of folks who I think are really going to take it to the next level, especially as we find, you know, with Jennifer starting at CoLab, We've always kind of used CoLab as a fiduciary body that manages our financials, which is really great to not have to do that as a organization. But I think that there's more and more alignment with their programming, and I think Jennifer has a much better vision of what that could look like than we've had in the past. So I'm really excited about that as well. But really, this today is kind of about two things. One is, how do we make sure that we continue to develop, not just the leadership of you all as developers and technologists, but the leadership of Chadev so that it's a sustainable entity. And how do we make sure that we're really checking in with you all as a community to make sure that the things we think are valuable are the things you think are valuable? So I think that's hopefully what I see come out of this. I'm always eager for the opportunity to kind of step back and let a new group of folks run with these things. So I'm excited about the people on the stage with me, and I think that I'm also excited about what you all might have to say as a community that help us really make 2019 the best year for Chadevs yet. Sorry that was so long.
I'm always amazed at how technology throws off people with technology backgrounds, no matter what the event, where it's at. That's why we will all be employed in some way forever, right? So that was a great history. I think Andrew answered or addressed some other things we're going to talk about later. But Derrick, I think you had mentioned the online community. So obviously we had like 48 meetings. I think last year we might have had 40. I thought I heard, but 48's the goal. But there's obviously a lot going on between Thursday and Wednesday of each week and in the community. So do you want to talk about the online community and maybe address some of the concerns or how it's evolved, some of the issues that might be the elephant in the room, or just sort of generally that kind of the Slack channel aspect of Chadev?
Yeah. So joined the Slack channel maybe 2 years ago, something like that, and when it was fairly busy. I mean, we have 600 people in Slack, something like that. It's a pretty big Slack group. It's pretty busy. It was pretty busy, and I think a big thing that we have been talking about in this last year into this year is trying to be intentional about where we want the community to go and where the community should go. And it's a good basis for that. And a big thing that kept coming up on Slack was, frankly, that there was not any moderation, and that it was just sort of, this group began as a Reddit, and it's kind of Reddit, but on a Slack. And a big thing that happened in the last year has been, I think of a better way of saying, burning it all to the ground and starting over, right? I mean, our Slack community, and this is me. I was definitely part of the group of people who was, it came from Reddit, right? And a big part of it has been getting a base where we are comfortable encouraging people to go there, because Slack is actually a big outreach for not just this group, but for Chattanooga as a whole. There's a surprisingly large number of people who join the group and say, hey, I'm in Seattle now, but I am very interested in Chattanooga, and I'd love to know more about the area. And we don't get into nearly as many fights over where the best hamburger is. We should do that more often now. But there's been a lot of people saying, hey, here's a great place to, a great realtor, stuff like that, that maybe doesn't necessarily fit with us as a technology group, but it's bringing programmers and technologists into Chattanooga. What I mean to say?
No, and we're gonna have Q&A. So if anyone wants to get deeper in Slack or mention something about that, but I think your point, Derrick, of the fact that people, when they're looking at Chattanooga, and sometimes they're a trailing spouse or partner, or they're thinking about relocating, they look for if they come from a tech background or they work in technology, they could be in marketing or sales, but they're still looking for the tech community to test it out. And I have to stop saying what I did in Birmingham. People have told me they're tired of it. But I'll just say, as a reference, in other communities that I've lived in, it's important to have evidence that there is something going on. And if it's not there, people will automatically assume, well, that's not a good place for me to look for a job. There's only big corporates. There's not a startup community. There's not really a robust tech community. So having that online channel is a real opportunity, and I've noticed in the past year or so that I've been on it, there are a lot of, hey, I'm either my company's relocating, I'm looking to move there, or I'm going to start a company, and so that's a valuable resource beyond just the event that is being put on. Does anyone else, I don't know, John, if you wanted to say anything about kind of what the opportunity for the online community beyond some of the things that we've talked about?
Yes, so really I just want to kind of advertise our Slack organization as a real asset to any developer here. I don't necessarily post a whole lot on there, but I'm often talking to people or even just observing if you have a problem, and granted there's Stack Overflow, right? But like say Stack Overflow, it's not as nice, as maybe like Craig or Will or somebody who can give you real advice, who's maybe made similar choices before, and so really like the people on there that you have access to, it really is an asset to me personally, but also to anyone who's at any stage of development or any stage of business.
Well, and I just want to mention to Andrew's point earlier about kind of the collab, and how many people know what the collab does? Okay, so probably should start. We basically are the front door for entrepreneurship, help people with ideas all the way to establish and want to scale up. But one of the gaps that we see, and it's in many entrepreneur centers, is that kind of ability to help tech founders understand the business side and then get business people to really understand the complexity of technology. It's not just throwing up a Wix page and there you go, you've got your business. So one of our goals is to try to bring in the technology community, whether they're startups or not, maybe they're just experts, into kind of our mentor network better, expand that into our programs, that sort of stuff. So for me, seeing the online community as an opportunity to maybe make those connections, I'm going to start posting about some of our accelerators and things like that that are coming up. If there's anyone in this community that's interested in making the leap from day job to company and is really looking for those resources. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to add, I think I've been involved with Collab for a number of years and taken a bunch of, they really are the front door for entrepreneurship. People, they'll schedule an appointment with anyone, and that's a real asset for us. Like, they save a lot of us a lot of wasted time with people who haven't fully understood the scope of what they really are saying when they say they want to build the Facebook or tacos. So, and I know that as a community, I think we've had frustrations sometimes with people coming in. They come to Hack Night, they have, the biggest idea in the world, and they just are looking for somebody to help them with that. And we can complain about that, and certainly we will complain about that. But, you also have an opportunity with Collab, and I've done this over the years a number of times, taking what they kind of what do you call it? Wayfinding meetings, where someone who has no idea what they're talking about, and they may or may not know that, and you really can't help them if they don't know that. But this wayfinding meeting is about sitting down with them, finding out if they realize how lost they are, and then helping them point in the right direction. It's not offering to do projects for free. It's not any of that, but it's education. And the more educated the population who's involved in these programs the fewer times you're going to be accosted at a party to be someone's tech co-founder on their Facebook for Uber for tacos. So, I think that, yes, we can complain about it. We also can do something about it. And in the end, you may find a great match where something you're really excited about, or you may have an idea like some folks in this room have who've left their job to start a company from a technology background, and you'll want access to the lawyers and accountants and all the folks that Collab makes available through their ecosystem. So,
and just a shout out to Carbon 5 because they do provide office hours for entrepreneurs that want to, better understand sort of what the technology is going to require. So thank you for that, Andrew. You mentioned a little bit about the possible benefits of Chadev to the community and that synergy. Does anyone else want to add anything to that in terms of why this organization, kind of what the benefits are, and maybe even talk about what they could be?
I actually want to add one thing because I want to set an assumption on the floor, and then as we get into the QA, I'd love for you all to provide feedback. But I mean, when I talked about that, helping developers develop soft skills and ability to advocate for themselves, that sort of thing, when Chadev, that has a very early history. When Chadev first got started, the way the entrepreneurial and startup scene was developing, there were people involved in that leadership who were pushing for 80-hour work weeks, and they were trying to pay Chattanooga market rates and get San Francisco level burnout. It was, there was just some weird things going on, and people, there was a shallow pool of developers. I think it's much deeper now. I mean, I'm just amazed by the level of talent that's been brought in by the various companies in town and that, has been developed locally. But I think that's probably not quite the same focus we have now. But I think one assumption that I have is that we do have a lot of San Francisco expats in Chattanooga working in technology. And I think, the way we view those are folks who didn't want to work 80 hours a week, wanted to raise a family, wanted to have maybe a little bit quieter life or more time for hobbies or any of those things, wanted to enjoy the outdoors. So they're not, and this is assumption that I think we talk about, but that's one kind of persona that we have as a Chadev, is someone who came from the West Coast. And I think there's probably several of y'all that either maybe are from there or spent a good chunk of time there, decided you wanted to come back. But that's an assumption. I don't know that that's necessarily, I think at this point we have this pretty established community. You all are fairly sophisticated. Y'all, advocate for yourselves. I think we still have some of that. I think the soft skills is still a very valuable, how, not just for you all that are here today, but how does Chadev continue to support the new hires in your companies? How do we how are we making sure that pipeline, ideally we don't have to hire San Francisco expats for senior positions, right? Ideally we do have a pipeline that's starting with, middle school, high school programs. Alex has, been amazing at supporting the efforts of Hamilton County with their eLabs program. So there's 16 of these makerspace fab labs in high schools in Chattanooga. It's sort of a way to sneak computer science curriculum into the schools because they don't really have a place for that in their traditional curriculum, but they can kind of have that as part of their project-based learning in these fab labs. And Alex has been running, pretty much open workshops since those fab labs were announced with all those 16 coordinators to help them learn Arduino, learn embedded systems, and be able to teach that to those children. So we've got that. Obviously, we've got representatives from UTC here, from their computer science club. I think we definitely have some opportunities to deepen that. But I would challenge all of us to think about that pipeline and what, from your perspective, you think we should be doing, because I think it's a real thing that we should be focused on, and I think it will have really deep effects in our community.
Do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
I wanted to add a little thing to when we were talking about Slack. I know this is where I jumped back, but the last year or so, I just wanted to tack on, we've really been trying to make it a safe space too, and that is kind of the burning down of that Derrick kind of alluded to, was we got serious about making it a safe space for everyone, and it's never an easy or pretty process to do that, But we're glad for the people who stuck around and wanted to make it an inclusive and safe environment for everyone. And I think it makes it easier for me to say, hey, yeah, go join the Slack community. You're not going to get harassed. You're not, like, those things aren't going to happen there because we make sure to kind of handle those situations. So I did want to add those were some growing pains for us that we went through, and we're still learning, and we're not perfect. And anyone who has suggestions on, how we can do that better too, we're definitely open to that.
That's a good segue into the next question. So maybe one of the goals for 2019 is better Slack. What are some of the other goals that have been talked about, and maybe we can discuss some of the programming changes that we've talked about, and then we'll open it up for questions.
So I think a big goal for us in 2019 is engagement. We want you guys to be more engaged here and elsewhere in the community. We know it's really easy to come in, grab a slice of pizza, sit down, watch the talk, and leave, and you don't have to talk to anyone, which, some people like, that's fine, but we know that when you engage with other people, things get better. You share ideas, and everything typically gets better. So there's a couple ways in which we're looking to do that. We're changing up the programming. We are still going to be doing technical talks because those are great opportunities for people in our community to come and speak and grow those soft skills, and also to share ideas that other people in the community might not know. We're going to be adding in some outside speakers to our local speakers every so often. So like next week, we're going to have Stu Holloway come in and give us a talk. So that'll be great. But in addition to our talks, we want to do some more engaging activities. One of which is in a few weeks, we're going to watch Hackers, which is just kind of silly, and it'll hopefully get us in a room together, sitting down, chatting, watching a fun movie, and eating some food. We also want to do some games like trivia and Jeopardy, but we're going to be a little bit more organized than we've been in the past about them. And we've even discussed like doing mini workshops and hackathons. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds like a lot of work, and it's going to be, and we would love for anyone who's interested in helping make this a reality to come and help out with that. We're all committed to this plan and to making this a more engaging and exciting place for you guys to connect. Another thing we're doing to help that, it seems like a small detail, but we're going to be trying to get local caterers to do our food and have fresher, more healthy items than we may have had in the past. We had pizza in the past, and that was great, and that was, thank you, Andrew, so much. Andrew was footing the bill for Chadev for a while out of his own pocket, so I feel like we should give him a round of applause. But we're working on sponsorships so that we can have better food like we've had today. Thank you again, Carbon 5, for doing that. And so let's see. I wrote down a little list just to make sure I covered all of our goals because we have several. Yeah, and so for us to reach this goal, we are going to need some help from the community we want you guys to be invested. We want your companies to be invested. So we do have sponsorship opportunities available. So many opportunities. We are wanting to do Chadev swag because who doesn't love swag? So we're looking for a sponsor for that. We're looking for, I think what we're going to do is monthly sponsors. So Carbon 5 is sponsoring this month of Chadev, and we're very grateful. But we need sponsors for the rest of the year. This is I think a really big value add to the community, and we would love for the community to be invested in this idea. We're really open to hearing ideas that you guys want to do. These are just some of the ones we had that we thought might be fun and help you connect more, but we really do want to hear from you guys.
Before we open it up for questions, is there anything else we should share or address?
I would just like to say a huge thank you to all the other organizers here who just put a lot of time and heart and soul into this. There's a whole lot of just love going around. People who just love being a developer, being in Chattanooga, the intersection of those things. And so just huge thanks to everyone who's kind of made it happen. That includes, the community who's been coming and engaging with us, as well as I know many of you in this room have spoken before, and so I just want to just say thank you, you know.
One other thing is we do want to, I just remembered, we want to get you guys connected with other meetups that are happening. This is a great place to come and connect once a week, but we want you guys meeting outside, you know, sharpening your craft in your areas that you work in, because we all work in different areas. Technology is a broad spectrum. And so we definitely want to keep shining a light on other meetups that are happening in the community.
So I'll take that opportunity to say there is actually a it's called Block Talk, blockchain mostly, not too much crypto, that I started with John from, well, he just jumped, but he was at Bellhops, that we got pretty good participation. So if you're in that space and you're interested in recruiting UTC students, there's quite a few that come that actually know how to program. Tonight we meet at 5:45 to 7, and BIDA, Blockchain and Transport Alliance, is going to be talking about trends or what they're seeing in the logistics industry. So we're going to open it up for questions, and I think I can cover this side of the room. We'll see. I'll grab someone from CoLab to hold the other microphone. Who's got a question?
I was just wondering, for college students majoring in computer science, where would be the best place to start if looking for summer internships?
I mean, coming to Hack Night, Carbon 5 does a Hack Night. That's a good place to come and connect again with people working on projects, and then you can bring stuff and share kind of what you're doing there. But I know there are large companies in town that do internships. Maybe, Andrew, you could speak more to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious opportunities are with the larger tech employers. I think that there is a desire across both the community, and I think I kind of spoke to this earlier, but like we had the Enterprise Center board meeting was in this space this morning, and the chancellor of the university here. And there's a desire across the university, you know, and the community to figure out how do we allow and build capacity for internships that aren't just at TVA, Blue Cross, and Unum, right? Like, there's capacity in those large employers because they have HR staff, they have all the framework to run those internships. But that's not, you know, obviously not everyone that goes through a computer science program is going to end up at a large enterprise like that. So unfortunately, I think it's a lot of like, if you don't want to go to a large enterprise, then you probably are like, you're going to have to come to a Hack Night. You're going to have to meet some people. You're going to have to kind of fight for your space and kind of prove yourself, because most small companies can't take on the load of a completely untrained intern without some idea of what they can do. They can't add risk on top of that. There's already like a cost to taking on an intern, and to add that risk that you may not, you know, work out at all is just too much for most small employers to handle. But I would add that I think there's a big push in the community to try to figure that out and make it less risky for the startups. So look for more in that space, and if you have ideas of how that might work, you know, I think there's people that are willing to listen right now.
Yeah, I don't know the where, but I know the how is definitely getting involved in the community, coming out of the school and getting into the community, try meetups that you are interested in, and then you're around people doing things that you want to do, and then they're working in those industries, and then they know you, just like Andrew was saying, like that's relationships in Chattanooga go really far.
I'm gonna plug something real quick too while we're talking about this topic, because I think it is so important, and it's such a gap in the pipeline right now. But part of the commitment from the university on this is that the dean of the College of Engineering and Computer Science has committed to the capstone project demonstrations actually being outside of the university. So they're going to be in April, and I'm sure we'll announce it when the final dates and everything are set. They're going to actually have those in the fourth floor of the library, try to get a lot more of the community, try to get, you know, folks like us to come to that and see what the undergrads are doing for their capstone projects. And I think that kind of engagement is what we really need moving forward. So hopefully some of you can make time for that and meet some of those. There's great students at UTC. I work with them a lot. But they do tend to, you know, hide in the shadows of the university.
a lot of the employers actually participate in Tech, and they're going to their monthly event lunches, and it's a very small fee, and you can go there, maybe network with some employers to odds of meeting someone.
Hey, oh, go ahead. Okay, sorry. Hey, so I'm not sure if you guys can speak into this, but in the time that Chadev has been going on, what do you see as far as the landscape of tech jobs? Like, is it increasing, decreasing, kind of staying the same? And if it's staying the same, like, or if it's not growing, what do you feel like are the barriers to that? That might be kind of a big question, but.
So, I mean, I think this really gets into what the community and ecosystem that CoLab focuses on every day, and maybe Jennifer is probably, could be one of the better ones to speak to this. I think from my perspective, there are a lot better jobs in Chattanooga than there were 5 years ago for technologists. The startups that are still around have much more sophisticated technology organizations. They, are cognizant of taking care of their developers better. They're doing more interesting work. And we tend to be recruiting more and more folks. I think, one thing that, Derrick is an example of this. There's a lot of folks that work for companies that aren't in Chattanooga. So this, in this community, this is another one of our real core personas, is folks who do care about the outdoors, care about family life, and work for a remote company that doesn't care where they live. And they pick Chattanooga because they've got great internet. They don't have to worry about, not being able to join the stand-up because their Comcast is down. So there went our Comcast sponsorship. I'm sorry. One of you has to make up for that. But yeah, I think overall there's more. There's less turnover and noise, I think, than there used to be. But I do think it's grown a lot, and I think the sophistication of the community has grown incredibly in 5 years.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm actually one of those Seattle expats you were talking about, but I grew up in the South, so I'm kind of returning home sort of thing. And a major reason I picked Chattanooga was this active community, yet it's small. So I was interested in getting into that. But from the outside, I didn't know this was so serious, that you guys had serious goals and these kinds of things. And so, and it's a huge benefit because it's one of the reasons I picked Chattanooga. And so is the rest of the city of Chattanooga interested in this as well? Why do we need outside sponsors? Can the city help us in some way? Have we tried that? Just wondering things like that.
I don't think we've reached out to the city particularly. We do need outside sponsors because we don't have extra funds within us to put this on, and there's this a cost. A lunch is about $500 a lunch, so that's not nothing. And so we do need sponsorships for that. We'd love to work with the city if they'd be interested. Do you have a connection?
I think from my perspective, I sort of have a moral kind of position against asking the city for money for this. We are all, if we had, for instance, we were sponsoring and something that you talked about as being serious, I think there's a seriousness to realizing what is possible, but we have been a little bit laissez-faire, especially in 2018, and that's what we're kind of here saying, yeah, that wasn't as good as it could have been, and this is what 2019 can be, and we're looking for you. But if we were doing a sponsored minority internship at a startup, I'd feel comfortable asking the city for help with that. If we're buying a bunch of people with above median income lunch, I have a little bit I have a hard time asking for help from the city with that. And the value being, yes, there is value being, return to the city. But the real value stream here is to those employers and to those entrepreneurs who are starting companies and need to hire from a qualified tech pool. Those are the people that should be paying for it. I mean, that's maybe a bit harsh and direct, but like that's the reality. So I think they're folks in leadership at the city do value what we do here. And, you know, one of the funny things Jennifer talked about, you know, coming by just at the tail end, that's freaking intentional. Like Ken Hayes will schedule outside visitor meetings for 1 o'clock on a Thursday because he likes to walk them through and go, and there's our tech community. And I mean, that's, you know, and it makes a difference. It recruits, you know, companies like, oh, wow, 50 people. And like, those are just, and they come here I mean, I talk to people who organize technology communities, technology evangelists that work for companies who, you know, try to do this sort of thing. And when I tell them that in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we can get 50 people a week, and, you know, in I would say 2016, 17, we were averaging more along the lines of 70, and we like peaked at 90 and 100. They just their minds are like they can't get enough. Like they can get 200 people at a monthly meetup in San Francisco, but they can't get people in a room every week. And I think that says a lot about, you know, what we're offering, and also a lot about our community, and that we are a collaborative, you know, eager to work together community. So I think there is value and people see it. It's just that I'm not sure that's the revenue stream we should focus on.
And I just want to add to that, to your question about the tech scene here. I think this organization over the last 5 years has probably impacted some of the growth in the tech scene, whether it was maybe, you know, new languages coming through or new employers. So a lot of the value of this group is not just the branding and the kind of backdoor recruiting, but it's also, you know, the ability to influence and to be part of kind of the continued renaissance of Chattanooga's technology sector, and that obviously bleeds out into everything this city does in this region. So do you want to say something? We've got time for one more question after Derrick.
To say, with part of the beauty of corporate sponsorships is it keeps the businesses invested in this working, which just got everything from the city, then the businesses would assume that it's going to be there forever. Where if we get the businesses to pay for this, it improves their employees, and then it becomes a self-sustaining cycle.
Any other questions? No? All right, well, I would just say I think we have some extra food, so please eat again, second lunch, if you're hungry. And thank you to all the panelists for being here and obviously supporting Chadev. And I think we'll stick around for a little bit, but if you really want to get involved, Slack channel, is that the easiest way to say, raise your hand?
You want to get involved as an organizer, or think that your company might be interested in helping to sponsor this, or you're really excited and want your company to sponsor this, you can Slack any of us on Slack. I'm Cave Woman. My name's not right on there. So that's who I am on Slack. Or you can shoot us an email or come up after this, and we'll get connected and work through that.
If you say the wrong thing, she's that in person too, so.
If you do want to be on Slack, don't leave today without giving us your email address if you're not on there, and we'll add you right now.
Like, one last thing of, if you want to help up here, I wasn't joking. I literally just post opinions on Slack and come to a meeting like once a month. That's all I do. So I really don't know I'm up here, but you can be too.
Derrick is up here because he has a very important role of helping us maintain and moderate the online community. We talked a lot about how we wanted to present these ideas for 2019, and having someone who spends a little more time engaged in the Slack community than the rest of us up here was very important to us, because we recognize how important that online community is to what we do. And if Derrick wasn't around, we probably would have shot it in the head a long time ago. Like it's very important. It's very important to why he's here. So don't let him talk himself down.
Yeah, Andrew wasn't kidding about us not giving Derrick much choice in this. He was strong-armed to be up there.
Thanks, everybody.